Here is the truth most people never hear. Birds are not simple, fragile little creatures drifting above our heads. They are engineers, survivors, rule breakers, and living evidence that nature still has the power to outimagine us. In this video, we move from glowing peacock feathers and a bird split between male and female colors to a 74-year-old albatross still raising young, birds that repay favors, ancient footprints older than birds themselves, Amazon species reshaped by climate, ibises taught to migrate by aircraft, toxic birds in Papua New Guinea, wild Australian birds whose bodies do not match their genetic sex, and crows clever enough to turn anti-bird spikes into building tools. If you think you know birds, think again. By the end of this journey, the sky above you may feel far stranger and far more intelligent than it did a minute ago. Let's begin with something that sounds like science fiction. Peacocks already look unreal when they fan those shimmering tails, but in 2025, researchers at Florida Polytechnic turned that beauty into something even more astonishing: laser light. Peacock feathers owe their color to intricate nanostructures called photonic crystals, tiny natural architectures that control the way light moves through them. The team stained feathers from male Indian peafowl, fired pulses of light into them, and watched the eye spots glow in multiple colors, including a striking green emission. Scientists still are not fully certain which structures inside the feathers produced the effect, but the result was clear. Nature may have been hiding laser-ready design in plain sight all along. And if that can be understood well enough, it could one day help create biocompatible lasers inside the human body. A bird display once built to impress a mate may now help inspire the future of medicine. Then there is the bird that looks like evolution forgot to choose a side. Near Manizales, Colombia, birdwatcher John Murillo spotted a green honeycreeper unlike almost anything ever recorded. Blue on one side, green on the other, split right down the middle. In this species, males are typically blue and females are green, making this individual a stunning case of bilateral gynandromorphy, a condition in which one body carries both male and female traits. Scientists say it was only the second known case ever recorded for the species and the first in more than 100 years. Over nearly 2 years of observation, the bird behaved much like an ordinary honeycreeper, though it seemed more solitary and showed no interest in finding a mate. Researchers believe the condition likely began when an egg underwent unusual chromosomal division and was then fertilized in a way that produced both male and female characteristics. It is one of those rare moments when nature stops you cold and reminds you that biology can still look miraculous. If the honeycreeper is one of nature's strangest visual surprises, Wisdom the albatross is one of its greatest emotional ones. In late 2024, headlines around the world lit up when Wisdom, the oldest known wild bird on Earth, laid another egg at the age of 74. She is a Lyson albatross, a species that usually lives to around 40. Yet Wisdom had already far outlived expectations, and experts estimate she has raised more than 30 chicks over the course of her extraordinary life. She was first tagged in 1956, when she was about 5 years old. Since then, she has survived decades of storms, oceans, migrations, and likely the loss of multiple lifelong partners, because scientists believe she has outlived at least 3 of them. And still, there she was, standing over a new egg at Midway Atoll, part of the largest albatross colony in the world. Some discoveries do not just expand science. Some restore your faith in endurance itself. Next comes a discovery that feels almost human. Superb starlings in Kenya are known to breed cooperatively, with some birds giving up their own chance to breed so they can help others raise chicks. But a 2025 study from researchers at the University of Cambridge found something even more remarkable. The favor is returned. After studying more than 400 nests across 9 social groups over about 15 years, the team found that helper birds often receive help themselves when it becomes their turn to raise young. In other words, these birds are not just acting on instinct in the moment. They are part of a social system built on give and take. Many pairings happen between relatives from the same nest, with one bird becoming the breeder and the other the helper. In a harsh environment marked by little food and frequent droughts, that reciprocity may be the difference between failure and survival. Call it friendship, call it strategy, call it cooperative intelligence. Whatever the label, it is far more sophisticated than bird-brained ever implied. Now we go backward in time, far beyond any modern bird, into a world older than birds themselves. In Lesotho, geologists from the University of Cape Town studied 163 fossil footprints dating to the late Triassic and early Jurassic, more than 210 million years ago. These tracks suggest that creatures with bird-like feet were walking across southern Africa roughly 60 million years before the earliest known birds are thought to have evolved. That is the kind of number that bends the mind. Fossil evidence has long suggested that birds emerged around 150 to 160 million years ago. So what made these tracks? Scientists do not yet know. Perhaps they belong to an unknown early ancestor. Perhaps some separate lineage evolved bird-like feet long before birds themselves appeared. Either way, the footprints force a bigger question. How many chapters of avian history are still missing from the story we tell about life on Earth? Then the story shifts from ancient mystery to change happening right now. In the Amazon near Manaus, scientists have been measuring birds for decades, using mist nets to capture individuals, then weighing them and recording wing size. What they found is deeply strange. Across 77 species, almost every one had become smaller over the last 40 years, and in about a third of those cases, the birds also had longer wings. Some species have dropped nearly 10% in size. Both migratory and non-migratory birds appear to be changing. Researchers are still working out exactly why, but they suspect climate shifts are playing a major role. As temperature and rainfall patterns change, bodies may be adapting in response. It is a quiet transformation, one that most people would never notice from one year to the next. But over decades, the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. The birds of the Amazon are changing shape in real time, and the forest may be riding that change directly into their bodies. Some discoveries are astonishing not because they reveal what birds can do alone, but because they show what happens when humans help them remember. The northern bald ibis once flew across 3 continents, and was so revered it appeared in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Then it vanished from Europe around 300 years ago. By the 1990s, just 59 pairs remained in the wild in Morocco. Conservation efforts have since helped push that number above 500. And in 2018, the species was reclassified by the IUCN from critically endangered to endangered. But in Europe, one biologist took the recovery story in an almost cinematic direction. Johannes Fritz used an ultralight aircraft to teach reintroduced ibises how to migrate from Germany to Spain, leading them through the sky, just like the film Fly Away Home. Today, around 270 of these birds are living in Europe, and most have learned the route well enough to migrate without his guidance. A species erased from the skies is learning the map again. And then there are birds that do not just look dangerous. They are dangerous. In Papua New Guinea, local people have long described certain birds as spicy, a deceptively playful word for something far more serious. These birds carry batrachotoxins in their feathers and skin, the same class of toxins known from some frogs and beetles. These chemicals latch onto nerve cells and force them to fire uncontrollably. In large enough doses, they can cause paralysis or even death. Scientists have known about toxic birds in the region for decades, but more recently, researchers confirmed that 2 additional bird species are also toxic. Even more fascinating, the evidence suggests those 2 species evolved their toxicity independently of one another. That means nature may have solved the same defensive problem twice, in separate avian lineages, in the same part of the world. Beauty, in this case, is not an invitation. It is a warning label written in feathers.
Every morning in southeastern Australia, lorikeets streak across the sky, hiding an extraordinary scientific mystery.
By the time we reach Australia, the discoveries begin to challenge one of biology's most basic assumptions. Researchers in southeast Queensland tested 480 birds from 5 common species, using DNA to determine genetic sex and then examining reproductive organs. What they found stunned them. 24 birds had reproductive anatomy that did not match their genetic sex, meaning about 1 in 20 showed sex discordance. The majority of those discordant birds were genetically female with male organs. The phenomenon appeared in familiar wild birds such as lorikeets and kookaburras, suggesting that sex reversal may be far more common in birds than scientists ever realized. The team was so surprised that they checked the results multiple times before they accepted them. Even the researchers' friends, when told about the findings, were described as mind-blown. And that may be the most important part of this discovery. Not that science has solved it, but that science has discovered how much it still does not understand. Finally, we end with a discovery that feels almost like avian revenge. Across cities including Amsterdam, Enschede, Antwerp, and Glasgow, crows and magpies have been found building nests with anti-bird spikes, the very metal strips humans install to stop birds from nesting on buildings in the first place. In some cases, magpies even arrange those sharp barbs on top of their nests as a defense against predators like weasels. It is a perfect twist of urban evolution. Humans invent a deterrent, and birds turn it into architecture. Kees Moliker, director of the Natural History Museum Rotterdam, admitted he never expected it. These spikes were supposed to scare birds away. Instead, the birds simply repurposed them. That is what makes corvids so endlessly compelling. They do not just survive the world humans build. They study it, adapt to it, and use it against itself. And in that sense, the last laugh may belong to the crows. So after all of that, one thing becomes impossible to deny. Birds are not background animals. They are living technology, evolutionary experiments, social strategists, survivors, migrants, chemists, and problem solvers wrapped in feathers. If even one of these discoveries surprised you, that is exactly why this world is still worth looking at closely. And if you want more stories like this, do not just watch and move on. Hit like so this video reaches more curious minds. Subscribe so you do not miss the next deep dive. And share this with one friend who still thinks birds are simple. Because the more you look at nature, the more it reveals that the impossible is happening all around us, every single day, just above our heads.